Hey, Rylan here at the Vic Shop, and welcome back to another profile of a repair. Today we're working on another 2006 Kingpin. On another repair episode I did a 2007 Kingpin. And this '06 is the same series of bike, and it's kind of got the same set of symptoms. My customer is complaining about many people have worked on it and it's still not running right, which is a pretty common thing, and it needs some maintenance and some service items addressed. So I think this is going to be pretty easy, simple, straightforward type of repair. So let's dig a little deeper and check it out. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do on a bike like this when it comes in right off the trailer is do a walk around and just check the simple, easy things that I know. I'm using my eyes and I'm hitting the main areas that I know are a problem. And on this era of bike, the main problems are going to be the throttle body boot, the fuel system, and battery voltage type issues. Those will be the top three. And right off the bat, I've plugged in my fuel pressure tester and flipped the key on and tested the fuel pressure. And on this bike, it was good. But when I talked to the customer, she said that no one's ever been in here and rebuilt it. And I'm just going to go in and redo the fuel system anyway. It's kind of a moot point plugging this in. But I wanted to know in advance if it was on, and it was good. But I'm going to rebuild it as insurance, basically, to make sure my rebuild process takes steps to make sure that it's less likely, any sort of failure from sitting that these are known for is going to be less likely to happen in the future. So right off the bat, number one, fuel pressure, easy enough. Let's go around to the other side for the second thing on my list. All right, so we're on the left side of the motorcycle now, and I know that the throttle body boot is a big issue on these bikes. They just tend to rot out from age. It's made of rubber. And she says that the customer states that someone may have already put one on there, and when I was looking at it on the other side, on the exhaust side, I could see that it was new. Oh, shoot, well, someone's already done that. But we come over to this side and check it out. And where are we at here? It's been installed incorrectly. I mean, come on here. That's a big old no right there. There's a huge air leak. And so if that's the skills of the person working on it before you, then you've got an uphill battle when something so simple gets overlooked. That I spot right off the trailer, pull it right up on the lift, get your light out, look at the throttle body boot, there's a big old freaking hole in it. So that's the number two thing on my list, and there we go. That's a problem. And this bike came in, it had a weird aftermarket dime store battery that the battery box had to be modified in order to fit it. I've already thrown it away, sent it to recycling, because it was dead and it was not a very high quality battery at all. And I want to put the correct battery in here. And then of course the typical, it's got some LEDs which are wired right to the battery. A lot of times these will have a little tiny bit of a draw to them, and when it's wired straight to the battery, there's no way to turn it off. It's just always on. And that can lead to the battery getting drawn down. And then the classic, some other accessory with no fuse and no sheath over the wires to protect it. And so great way to have more electrical issues there. And that's another thing on the list. So I'm just doing my walk around here. We're still within the first couple of minutes of getting this bike up onto the lift, and I've identified a couple problems already. And so along with that battery charging, wiring stuff, I'm going to take a look at the voltage regulator. And yeah, here we go. You can see that this is a cheap aftermarket voltage regulator that is not OEM, and I would not recommend because they just don't work very well. And the stock ones are still available right from Victory. And third thing on my list, I'm going to replace that. And that'll go along with the new battery and fixing the wires and whatnot. So let us see where fixing the 3 known major problems with this bike is going to get us. And if you're watching this at home, those are 1, 2, and 3 on my list of things to look at when you say, hey, my 03 to 07 bike is not running quite right. So give me some time. Let me sort through these repairs here, and let's revisit this in a matter of seconds on your end. Okay, well, I thought that I might do all the repairs and then start another, filming another clip, but I thought it would be better if I showed you kind of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and what I found and all that good stuff. Let me grab the camera here real quick. So let's start with the throttle body. When it comes time to do it, a lot of guys ask, how should I remove it and replace it? What's the easiest way? And I'll tell you that, you know, I've got the throttle body apart there. Really, I didn't even need to take the top off. I've only removed it just so I can clean the throttle body boots. And then I've come in to this side and I've removed the coil and the wires and all that stuff. And here's a tip for you. Just let it dangle. Several times in the past year, a guy's called me, and it's turned out that he's unplugged these two and then mixed them around when he put it back together, so the front was firing the rear and vice versa, and it was as simple as that. So a way to avoid that is just not to unplug it or, you know, label those, because those are easily confused. So I got that coil off, and then on this side I've got this oil line off here. And I haven't even unbolted it on the front. I just rotate the tube around, flipping that into an upward position, like so. And I can get at it all from this side. And do note that there are two oil ring or O-rings here. Excuse me. And the white plastic goes against this rib here, and then the rubber O-ring would be seating against the block. I've seen lots of people lose the white piece and have it start leaking massively when they put it back together, or put these on the wrong way or whatever. So that's that. And then when that's out of the way, the throttle body just boot slides out the side. Like you see, I've already got it out here. And let's take a look at the old one. And that's what was a huge glaring issue, that it's not seated down properly. Not only that, this bolt here, the center one, was stripped out. And then the center one on this side was just plain old missing. So, good thing we straightened that out. I got a new boot here. These are still available straight from Victory. I recommend the OEM boot. While I was in here, I'm checking spark plugs. You know, I'm right here and got the wires off. Thankfully, it's got the OEM spark plug, which is nice. And I'm just looking at condition. I'm not trying to read this plug, quote unquote. I'm looking to see if it's wet or dry, or, you know, I'm not going, oh, this looks like it's running rich, or this looks like it's running lean, because this is no way to tell if it's running rich or lean. But, you know, if one of these is ghost white and the other one's black and has a big old drip of oil coming off the end, that's a pretty good indication that something's going on with one cylinder and not the other. And that's fair, you know, that's a good way to read plugs. But it's no indication of air-fuel mixture. So, you know, check those plugs out. Those look pretty good. That's how you get the throttle body out. I have just run a zipper, this bungee cord up from the airbox to kind of hold it up. and swap out the throttle body boot. So the next thing on the list was the voltage regulator. So I'm down here doing the voltage regulator, and here you can see the aftermarket one that I've taken off. Looks brand new, but there's quite a bit of difference here between the OEM and aftermarket. And this one, so one of the roles of the regulators convert the AC voltage coming out of the engine into DC, and excess energy is expelled through heat, and that's why it's got fins on it, and so they get hot. And this one has gotten so hot that it started to, like, some sort of goo has started to leak out of the edges here. And when I unbolted it from the bottom of the engine, there was a bunch of strings of plasticky goo that were coming off, and it looked to me like it had gotten quite hot, and then it was so poor quality that a bunch of the internals were kind of leaking out of it. So anxious to get this on here, still available new from Victory. And then a huge thing is the wires that lead to and from, or from I should say, the regulator. Again, AC voltage in, the 3 pins there from the stator in the engine, and then DC voltage out, the positive and negative here. And this connection that's made up underneath the bike, which I have a part there, is prone to corrosion, or if you use a cheap regulator and it gets super hot, it can do some melting. And so that's very common for a person to have a charging issue, put a new regulator on, either quality or not, and still have the same issue. And it turns out it's just the plug end on either the regulator or the bike has a problem. This one is pretty clean as far as these are concerned. I did notice on the positive side there was some melting going on there. Really hard to see in the camera. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take the connection apart. Let's get it. Make sure there's no melted plastic that's interfering with the continuity of the circuit. And again, here I'm doing one side at a time so I don't mix them up and accidentally rewire this backwards. Good mechanic trick there. Okay, so and lastly, as I go through the bike, I'm disconnecting all the poorly wired aftermarket stuff, and this one goes to like a phone charger that's up on the handlebars, and I'm gonna change that up and make it so it's like an industry standard type of thing with a fuse, and it's wired into a switch circuit. So that's not done yet. While I was in here, I'm thinking to myself, let's check out the cables, just like the last Kingpin we were working on. And this one has got a similar problem where there's a bracket here that's supposed to hold this cable up into the housing. And the bracket's gone because it's got this cruise control on there, which, is a fine way to, it's just a throttle lock cruise control. But they removed the bracket. Now, this can nearly fall all the way out of its bore, and if that does fall out and gets caught up, that's going to be a major safety issue. And these are the original cables. They're kind of all not in the best shape, kind of all pulling apart here. I'm going to correct all that. I'm going to put another set of cables on it. I'm going to get into my spare parts, get that missing bracket. And so I said to myself, okay, well, I'm looking at the throttle cables. Let's look at the clutch cable, because clutch cable is definitely a wear item. And so I'm coming up here. Cable looks pretty new, but I noticed that. See if I can get a view into there. You can see there's supposed to be a sleeve on that little brass grommet that's in there, or whatever you want to call it. And that's making the clutch adjustment all weird, and it's probably wearing out the inside of the handle, and so that needs to be corrected. I'm also looking for frayed cable, and especially when we get it apart. And you can see it's dry as a bone. We'll put some lube in there. Another another spot is this end, and once it's apart, you can see in the barrel there that's got a piece of plastic. Well, that top should have had that same piece of plastic, and it doesn't. This is actually a cable that's intended for a later model Victory, which is fine, but it's supposed to come with that plastic piece, and it's not on there. Again, I will be looking for fraying and stuff on the end of the cable while that's all apart. Okay, so now we can begin the repairs, or finish the repairs, I suppose. Now that I've got it all apart, I can see what it needs. We'll put some cables on there, throttle body boot, the new battery, the voltage regulator, and we'll see how it goes from there. Oh, yeah, and of course, let's rebuild that fuel system while we're got it apart. So I'll be back in a matter of seconds. Okay, welcome back. So some time has passed, and I've had a chance to do all the work that I was talking about on the bike, and got it up on the dyno here to test out how it runs. Again, we did the throttle body boot. It's got a fresh battery in it, totally rebuilt fuel system, the OEM regulator on there. This bike is nice in that the exhaust has oxygen sensor ports for my dyno, so now I can wheel it up on the dyno, plug in my oxygen sensors, turn on the dyno. The two green bars there are my oxygen sensor, the air fuel meter, and I can start the bike up and know exactly where the air fuel is and judge how it's running and see if it's running rich or lean or if it's right on the money, and I can shift it through the gears and try it all out. So if you don't have a dyno at home, your next step is to buy a handheld air fuel meter. It's going to give you so much information, especially in a scenario like this, because this bike is running like complete dog crap. I've already started it and ran it, and it's running super lean, and it kind of barely runs, basically. It's off the charts lean. And I know now that, one, I know it is in fact lean because I have my air fuel meter on there, and I know that it's not because it's low on fuel pressure or volume. It doesn't have a glaring intake leak. It's not massively over or undercharging a battery with a dead cell. All of those things have been taken care of in advance before I got it up on the dyno and kind of just started it up and see how it runs. So that gets us into the actual fix, and we've come so far just taking care of stuff that I've just seen on the shakedown, and now we're into the actual, okay, there's a problem with the bike and let's get into the fix. So I got some solutions because this is actually a pretty common problem, and I'm kind of glad it's got this problem because it's a great time for me to talk about it. So let me get into that here in a second. Okay, well, some time has passed, and as you can see, the bike is gone. My customer caught wind that her bike was almost done, and she came up and collected it. I was able to fix it, and it's running great, and that was a little while ago, and she's since reported that everything's good. So let me explain what happened. What happened is that it lost its throttle position sensing. The ECM, the computer in the bike, just kind of forgot what it was doing. And I see this quite a bit, and it's a really common problem, unfortunately, and there's no good solutions here now that Victory's out of business and dealers are hard to find. So what it is the '02 to '07 bikes have an open loop fuel injection system. So there's no oxygen sensor there to close the loop and take readings and adjust the fueling on it. And so it runs off a fixed map. And there are many different fixed maps that the bike could be programmed with. There's the dealer tool, digital wrench, is how a lot of those programs were programmed into the bike when it was new, or or on the showroom anyway, at the dealership level. And there's a portion of that open loop map that is variable. I don't know exactly why Victory made a portion of their map variable, but it is, and it's adjustable with the dealer computer. But I don't think that Victory anticipated that that variable portion of the map could get messed up. And what happens is, generally with some sort of drastic voltage spike up or down, it can forget its throttle position sensing and do what this red bike had happened to it, where it runs like complete crap. It's forgotten where it's at. And so back in the day, when you had dealers that were available and they had the knowledge and the software and the hardware to work on them, you could bring it down to the dealer and have them reflash the bike or adjust the throttle position sensing. So a lot of times this will happen when a battery gets undercharged, or like a person is jumping their bike from a running vehicle and it overcharges, or like I think something happened with our red Kingpin that it had that old aftermarket voltage regulator on there and a goofy battery, and it's like, well, no wonder the throttle positioning sensing got all messed up. And so it happens, and it should be easily correctable by the dealer. Like you, well, let me explain a little further. I got a couple visual aids here. So what I've drawn here is I got a couple of translucent sheets, and this is super simple, like way simplified version of what's going on. This is like the ECM program. This is a graph of what the computer is programmed to do, and provide a certain amount of this, that, and the other, and then in a perfect world, the engine needs, which is the second one here, in the engine needs, will be laid on top of it, and they would be pretty much matching. What the engine needs should be what the computer provides. And when the throttle positioning gets messed up, what happens is a lot of times the engine needs and the ECM program will be off. Like it'll shift maybe this way, and it's evenly really, really rich or really lean throughout the board. What the engine wants isn't what it's getting, or it can be skewed like this, where one side is way too much and one side's way too little. And so when you have the dealer reprogram this, so like let's say it's just a little bit off like this, they can go in with the dealership, the digital wrench, and there's literally a button that you click a number of times, and then with a handheld air fuel meter, you can like click, 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 and watch it affect the air fuel until boom, you kind of catch it. You don't want to go over, and you want to come back. And in a perfect world, that would be it. I mean, it's like 10 minutes with a couple of mouse clicks. So simple. But unfortunately, it doesn't always happen that way, where you find a dealer that's got the hardware and the software and the knowledge to do this. And then sometimes the voltage spike is so great that the two just become way off. Like it looks like this or something, and there's just no amount of adjusting. It's just not going to run right. It has been messed up. Someone's ruined the ECM. And then which I've got some ECMs here. And then it could need, the middle ground is that instead of hitting an adjustment button in the software, the actual ECM is reprogrammed from scratch, like it's just rewritten, and then sometimes that'll bring this back together. And sometimes the ECM is so screwed up that it's just ruined, and even the dealer flashing level cannot fix it. Now, there are two companies in the world today that can aftermarket flash this. One of them is Lloyd's, and the other one is Rob's Dyno service. And I've seen it where their flash cannot fix an ECM that's really, really messed up. So 9 times out of 10, we can fix this, either at the dealer level or with an aftermarket flash, if those skills are available. But sometimes it just needs another ECM. It gets that bad. And so I was saying that this is a really simplified version of what's going on. I've got this other map here called up where this is a 3D map from a Maximus controller for a later model bike, but you can see that it's not just a straight line. There could be 2 different 3-dimensional maps or many different maps, and that look like this huge topography of different levels of fuel and timing and other engine controls. And so getting this, and that's like what the ECM wants to give, and then there's another one that the engine needs, and they need to be roughly the same size and shape, for the engine to run right. So it's a lot more complicated than just a couple of lines like I had here. So let me get back here. Okay, so it's got the variable throttle position sensing, and it can get thrown off by drastic voltage changes, and it could technically be fixed at a dealer level if you found someone that had the skills and the tools. But because a lot of that doesn't exist anymore, what we're left with is an aftermarket part. The Power Commander, in this case, is this is a Power Commander 5. It's a 19-050. Fits any 2002 to 2007 Victory model, even though it may not say that on the packaging. The 19050 is correct. And what that is doing is allowing me to, so if we got our mapping there and it's skewed, I'll be able to fill in these areas, add fuel where it's lean and subtract fuel where it's rich. And you can tell just how far off these are by what my Power Commander map looks like. And so the variable part of the program, the Victory programming, is generally from idle, or it is from idle to about 30-some% throttle to 3,200 RPM. So that's, let me show you. I've got it highlighted here on my Power Commander map. Let's get close in here. So if you notice that idle through about 30% throttle and 3,200 RPM, we're getting some huge numbers in here. Like there's 30% difference in fueling here, and this is right off idle. And just that 10% difference at idle was enough to make it run really, really crappy. And so if I had access to the dealer computer, what I can do is hit the Richen button until that number becomes sort of a middle ground, like try to bring this whole, the 2 lines, try to bring them back together. But if I don't have it, then we get a map that looks like this. And so I've seen values in 50s or 60s here just because it's so skewed that it just needs that much extra fuel. And so this is pretty typical. And then if you notice outside of that, there's just like 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s, just, numbers below 10. And that's, why the bike would run good under full throttle. But when you're just putting around or idling, it's just absolutely dying and running like crap. And so this a map that looks like this, where there's huge values in the variable section of the fuel mapping, and then small values outside of that, is a really good indication that the throttle position sensing is out of whack on that bike. And then, so that's basically it. It kind of gets into, a lot of people ask, well, why can't I get a generic, let me put the camera back here. Why can't I get a generic Power Commander map from you? You've provided them for the 08 and later models, but I've got an 06 or 05 or 04 or whatever. Why can't I get a generic map to work? And the reason is, the later model bikes don't use this type of system. It's completely different. And if you remember that three-dimensional map that I was showing you, each bike, 02 to 07, is going to have that in here, and each one's a little bit different. And so each one of these is going to be different, and finding a map that exactly puts the engine needs and the ECM base program together on top of each other is basically impossible. There's so many different programs. The setting can vary so wildly in that idle to 3,200, 30% throttle range, that there's just no way these two are ever going to match. I mean, yeah, sure, you could get lucky, a 1 in 1,000 chance or something like that, but generally speaking, you can't. And so the long and short of it is that's a problem, and if your dealer's good, you can correct it. I would highly recommend that if you think that this is a problem, that you get a handheld air fuel meter, because this particular, the 06 Kingpin, the red one we were working on, it was really lean, but I've seen it where it's really rich, and both rich and lean will have the same symptoms. It'll run like crap, and you can't read the plugs to determine which it is, rich or lean, because a lean mixture can also foul plugs just because of incomplete combustion. So if you're at home, you've done all the other work to the bike, you fixed the air leaks, the battery, the voltage, all the other stuff we covered, and you're down to, and you don't have a dealer, and you're down to putting a Power Commander on there, then you need to get a handheld air fuel meter, plug it into the pipes, and then add or subtract fuel, make your own map, basically. But that's the last step after everything else has been tried. I guess one final thing about that Power Commander map is, it'd be great if you could have it fixed by the dealer and get these two lines to match up, because when the Power Commander's on there, you know, if these two lines are a little skewed and it's filling in the gaps, a little bit's cool. You know, the Power Commander's not doing a lot of work. But if the Power Commander's doing a huge amount of work, these are way skewed and it's got huge values in here to make up for it, it could potentially lead to it running poorly, where the Power Commanders just can't keep up with the demands. Or years from now, the Power Commander eventually fails and the bike goes right back to where it was all screwed up. And it's just too bad that the dealer, we don't have a better solution than scabbing on an aftermarket controller. But it is what it is, and I would say the knowledge of what it is and why it is really important. And so yeah, go forth with that knowledge. Again, I just can't reiterate enough, the bike has to be in perfect mechanical health, and then the only way to tell air fuel meter, or air fuel, is to have a sensor. You know, you just can't judge it from, well, I think it's running lean. It's got to be with the sensor, and that is going to get you corrected. You know, if fixing the bike's mechanical issues didn't do it, then this is what's going on, and that's how you're going to correct it. So, wow, what a bike. I'm glad that I finally got to cover that, because it's been hard to explain in the past. I know I can refer people to this video. And good luck with it. Call me if you need anything, and stay tuned.